And on today's show, why standalone policies make sense. Part 4 of this week's series on selecting the right long-term care coverage with long-term care expert Maria Sarchi. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Backroom Technician in Innsmouth. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to day 4, Maria.
Thank you, Steve.
I love this whole week. If you missed any of our front end, we've had some of the best long-term care discussions I've been involved in the last 30 years of my career. Tuesday and Wednesday shows were unreal. Watch them in sequence. I think it'll really help your learning experience. Today we're talking about everything but a standalone policy. Now, some people say, boy, why do I need a stand? I got hybrids, I got accelerated benefits like we talked about yesterday. Isn't standalone kind of passe and archaic and old school? But you say no.
I say no. I say no to that. I say there most certainly is still a market for it. I say that we are in a place now where we understand pricing better than we ever did before. We certainly have adjusted as we've gone along. It's not perfect, but when people call me and say, I think I'll never talk about standalone long-term care again, so then you're doing a disservice to your client. You're doing a disservice because it fits a very particular need. It's still the best way, in my opinion, that somebody can look at cost of living adjusted solution by putting the least amount of premium out of pocket. The 40 and 50-year-old who still may have children in college or taking care of mom and dad, still a very viable solution.
Well, when I'm looking at this, I myself, I have a standalone contract. My wife and I both have it. And so we've had this now for, I'm going to say 3-4 years. I started looking seriously when I got into my late 50s. I said, hey, I better start looking at this. Of course, you told me about 3 days ago, we should have been looking at this when we were 40s. So I've kind of graduated. I'm a little late, but I'm there. So we're there now, we're doing it. And I'm looking at this, what's given the options. And again, I love the options of our business here in long-term care. We have the accelerated benefits we talked about yesterday, the day before hybrids. But there are reasons to buy standalone policies. Give me your number one reason why I should consider it. What's the number one reason you see consumers look at this?
The number one reason that I see consumers looking at standalone long-term care is because they're trying to cover a long-term care risk to their retirement portfolio, and they don't have the single premium or the inflated premium that comes along when you're combining life insurance or an annuity to a long-term care solution. It's still the best way, in my opinion, for somebody to look at a bigger leverage pool down the road without having to put as much premium out of pocket up front. Now, the mindset for many individuals is that it's too expensive. And so we've been talking about this for 2 weeks. Annual premium of $4,500 in comparison to paying out of pocket $5,000 a month if there's a long-term care event. May seem like such an easy decision to make. The reality is there's still a thought process of $4,500 a year over 10 or 20 years, and I may not need the coverage. Well, for somebody who says that, shift and take a look at some of these hybrid solutions. For the individual who really understands the risk that's involved and trying to cost share some of that long-term care risk, it's a great solution.
Now, when you're looking at standalone, let's do one of the riders that are the most popular to talk about, and that, of course, is cost of living adjustment.
Yes.
Now, I've seen them all the way down to, here's a % or two you can buy, and I've seen some outrageous numbers on the other side. What's your highest COLA that you've seen out in the market?
5% is the highest that I've seen. Where we're bordering now is right around 3%, but it can go down to 2%. You can do CPI inflation. There's all different ways you can look at it. The key thing is that look at it. Look at what's out there. Understand what the cost is for each. Don't be afraid to evaluate those different options. Many of the manufacturers, the writers of this type of insurance encourage you looking at the different options. Remember our 4 basic questions, one of which was, where will the funding come from? When you've identified how much premium is available, we'll talk in the next segment about where some of those premiums come from. When you identify where the premium is, and you can show the client how that premium could be leveraged, again, standalone LTC, way to go.
Okay, so I get my baseline policy. I'm willing to share some risk with the insurance company. I've now selected a COLA that I think is representative. I think the bang for the buck that I'm paying for it, I like that. What's another rider I should consider when I'm building my standalone policy?
Well, one of the riders that we see most often used is a shared rider between 2 spouses, where you can basically both tap into a pool of money to lean on coverage as it's needed.
Okay, so if father is using his, but he doesn't use it all, or I'm sorry, he uses it all, he could actually tap into his wife's benefits?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and that feature's been around for very many years. Again, it's one way that you could look at maybe taking down how long the coverage would have to last. So instead of buying a 10-year benefit pool, if we each have 5 and we can share it, it kind of gets us to the same place.
And there's some economy of scale there.
Yes, of course.
Okay, well, what's another rider would you say that you look at? You've seen this, I love this last one you just described.
Yeah, one of the riders that I get asked about frequently is a return of premium rider.
I don't use it, so.
Right. If I don't use it, then at least can I get my premium back? And interestingly enough, knowing what we do about the long-term care market, if return of premium is key, sometimes a pivot to a hybrid solution, life insurance with return of premium that's already built into it, could actually weigh out more because of the life insurance benefit that's being added to the policy than having an ROP rider on your long-term care. So it's one that I'm asked about often, but really, really ratchets up your premium.
We come back from the break. I want to talk about some of the real costs of this because, you know, we talk about real numbers, real people. We go through this every time as planners. We're talking about real events, and we're talking about it as part now of our retirement planning. We'll be right back after this message. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back to our second segment. Of course, we're with Maria Sarchi. She is a guru when it comes to long-term care. We're talking about the cost now of a long-term, standalone long-term care. You know, when we put, like I said, the temptation as a male advisor is to put this all out on the table and measure every single thing. Hybrid, life and annuity, accelerated benefit, life and annuity, standalone. I want to see it all. I want to piece it out. I want to dissect it. But sometimes the questions, the thing that's driving the client has nothing to do with the math. It has to do with achievement, goals they want to really conquer in retirement.
And I'm so glad you said that, Steve, because often it's the advisor that's looking for every single solution that's out there because they want to put it all in front of the client. The client doesn't even understand what half of those things are, which is why, as the advisor, when you ask the questions that help peel back the onion layers, what are you looking to achieve? Where do the premiums look like they might come from? What's your medical history like? The answers to those questions automatically will put us down a path of one of the 4 solutions we've been talking about all week. Linked benefit life, linked benefit annuity, standalone LTC, or the accelerated benefit products. So as the advisor, we encourage you to ask some of these questions to the client when you're working with a long-term care resource, one that can really help you pick and choose proper solution. You're being set up to sit across from the client with the best solution in the market for them.
Well, when I try to quantify costs, I'm trying to think about my probable time I'm going to use this. If I buy it at 60, I'm probably not going to use it at 65 or 70. So I'm going to be out there around 75, 80, somewhere in that vicinity. So I want to see what my actual, I laid down a premium, let's say $4,500 for this female 60 we've been talking about all week. That actual benefit, by the time she may need it, which is out there, is going to be somewhere around $440,000. So this is a huge chunk of money. And I got the permission, as you said. I didn't have any other way to do this. I had to pay by the year or maybe even monthly to pull this off.
Because your alternative is a self-insuring alternative, correct?
Right, and I don't want to do that. And I don't have any single deposits for annuities or life.
Right. So in the standalone world, you now have the option to create a benefit pool 20 years down the road that is going to be double what you started with today.
Well, let's talk about some of the options, and I'm going to go backwards on my list here. People have, I have money and sitting in money markets because I just want some liquid money with CDs, but it's paying me nothing. So I'm just using it there for liquidity. And so many times we think about liquidity markets, and I'm thinking like, why am I having this money? Well, usually because I'm going to need an emergency. Why do I even have these? So I created this emergency account. It's making nothing when I could have used this same emergency account and created this huge number when I need it back in age 80. That's one place I want to look at. But then talk about RMDs. Now, a lot of people, this is where you're going to get a lot of advisors. Oh, RMDs, I know what that is about now. How am I going to use RMDs to make this payment?
Well, think about those required premiums that are coming out, right? What are you going to do with them? What were they meant for? If you are using them to live off of, remember we talked about not designing this big Cadillac plan to cover all the long-term care risk. Come at it from the approach of cost sharing. So when you have this income stream, identify what the income stream is, and then you can work the plan backwards. Identify what kind of benefit that income stream can purchase. And you're doing that with a client who said, I've got this income coming through, I don't necessarily need it to live off of, but think about the power punch when you say that money that you don't necessarily need can protect your entire retirement.
Yeah, that is a huge issue. I meet many clients all the time. Steve, I don't even want to take these RMDs, but the government tells me I have to. It's mandatory.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, you have to do it. But since you have to take it and you have to pay taxes anyways, let's recapture the actual leverage of that dollar and put it into a long-term care standalone policy. Now, I want to ask you about HSA accounts. Man, I love this, and I hope I read the law right. I have a health savings account. I can use it for any health related. Can I use it for premiums of a long-term care contract?
You can. Standalone long-term care project.
Wow. Now here's something, because this is a little known fact, and I'm kind of curious if Maria even knows this. But you can take a IRA one time and you can dump your IRA, exchange it into your HSA account, right? Think about that, into your HSA account, and then that account can pay for long-term care. So I've already gotten the deduction on a qualified IRA. I'm allowed one time, my wife is allowed one time, as long as it doesn't exceed the HSA annual contribution. So right now, I think it's at $65.50 or something like that. So if I did it at this side of the year in November and my wife did hers in January, we could pull $13,000 out of our qualified plan into our HSA to pay for this.
And then use the premiums.
And that's free. That exchange is free, and that's one of the hugest leverage for the government, and that's a little known. So, Steve, I've never heard that. If you write me at steve@downtobusiness.tv, I'll send you the paperwork on that through Backroom Technician. You'll be amazed.
These things don't happen by accident. Why do you think all of these advantages are being brought to the American public?
Oh.
Think about the drain that there is right now in our country to cover long-term care. Medicaid, Medicare seem to be the go-to place. And so we've talked about in earlier segments how few insureds there are for long-term care protection. So even the government is trying to incent folks to go out and look at private ways to do it.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Miss an episode? Just go out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you tomorrow.